Crazy Leveling System Chapter 1. Jade Palace, located in a remote area of the Dragon Empire, was built on a snowy mountain. Even with hundreds of years of inheritance, among the entire Dragon Empire, it can only be considered a medium or low-tier faction. There are nearly 1,000 disciples in Jade Palace, most of them female, each beautiful like a flower. With the many female disciples, even with the heavy snow and the lack of plants, Jade Palace was full of beautiful flowers, blooming in the heavy snow, forming a beautiful landscape. Although the Jade Palace was nothing out of the ordinary, there are many women here, and it is considered a good place for many cultivators to choose Dao companions. At this time, under the heavy snow, many female disciples were training their martial arts. With long swords in hand, sounds of their practice echoed through the entire Jade Palace, ringing out like music. Under the rhythmic and powerful sounds, it seemed that the winter was not too cold. At the same time, in a courtyard in the Jade Palace, a pale teenager was wielding a wooden spear in his hand. It whistled through the air as he continually thrust forward. Each thrust seemed to condense all of his strength and before releasing all of that power. As the snow fell onto his spear he thrust forwards, a snowflake was turned into countless white spots and scattered down. After thrusting a few more times, he stopped practicing and looked up at the sky. In the meantime, his thoughts drifted to the memories of his previous life. His name is Yi Tianyuan. He was a gamer. One night, during a thunderstorm, he was struck by lightning and he lost consciousness. In his last moments, he realized that his life was coming to an end. It would be stranger if he managed to survive after being struck by such a powerful bolt of lightning. When he regained consciousness, he was already here, and he found strange memories in his head. The owner of the body died because the body was too weak, yet he still trained excessively and eventually died of overexertion. And despite that, he, the current owner of the body, still pushed himself. Even though he knew that he couldn't train for too long, and his body was really weak, he nevertheless needed to strengthen himself. Do I have no other way? His face was pale, and his body was thin. He didn't look as burly as other cultivators. Instead, he was as fragile as a girl. Hi-oh-ah! He shouted and strove forward with a spurt, a cyclone running along the tip of the spear, and a pile of snow in front of him was blasted away, turning into countless snowflakes that slowly fell from the sky. It looked so beautiful. However, the pale color of his skin was not much worse than the snowflakes. His skin is pale and horrible, and he didn't possess blood chi. This was taboo for the cultivator. Those who don't possess blood chi would be facing difficulties in ordinary life, let alone trying to cultivate. It was like not having blood. How can someone live without blood? The boy was in this situation. His face was pale, and since he has no blood chi, and he will die young. To train martial arts in this state was just trying to step into your coffin earlier. Therefore, he could only exercise and wasn't allowed to practice martial arts. Cough and cough. His face suddenly reddened. It was rare to see even that much blood chi, which was followed by a severe cough that forced him to become half squatted. He was no longer a cultivator, he was just a sick person. Cultivating was just too much, and his body was unable to bear it. Our young master, how come you out here practicing? You are hurting yourself. At this point, a maid ran out of the palace, watching the coughing teenager. She blamed him for what he's doing, but more than that she was worried about his well-being. She hurriedly took a piece of clothing and put it on the boy. Due to practicing martial arts, he did not wear any clothes. In such cold weather, wearing such thin clothes was insane. Sister Xiaolian, I am fine, I am just exercising, Yu Tianyuan held back his cough, and from his pale face, he squeezed a smile and expressed that he was fine. His other identity was the young master of Jade Palace. The Lord of Jade Palace was his aunt, and she felt responsible for Yu Tianyuan since his parents' whereabouts were still unknown. When he said that, he stood up on his own, without borrowing Xiaolian's help, which proved that he was fine. Xiaolian looked at him from the top of his head to the bottom of his toe, and confirmed that Yu Tianyuan is finished with his training, felt a little relieved. Xiaolian said, "Palace Lord asked me to take you to the main hall. I've been looking for you for quite a while and didn't find you, and here you are, practicing martial arts. Young master, I know that you want to practice martial arts, but continuing to cultivate in your current situation, then," she said reluctantly. Xiaolian couldn't finish what she said. "If I continue to cultivate, I'll die." Yu Tianyuan smiled indifferently, then he said, "I always know that this body doesn't possess blood qi, and I am not worthy of cultivating. But I don't want to let it end like this. I don't believe in fate, it's too pathetic. His talent was not bad, but he doesn't possess blood qi, that's where the problem lies. Even though he was talented, without blood qi, what was the point of being talented?" "Young master," Xiaolian's eye became teary. She was only a few years older than Yu Tianyuan. When she looked at Yu Tianyuan, she was filled with sadness. "Don't say anything else, let's just go to the main hall, I wanna know why my aunt is looking for me." Yu Tianyuan threw the spear to the side, accurately hurling it onto the weapon frame on the side before they stepped into the main hall. When he stepped into the main hall, he felt warmer. He noticed gazes turn toward him, a female gaze, all of whom were from the female disciples here. It can be described as a man's paradise. Many outsiders wanted to join as a disciple, but not everyone was recruited. Only a small number of male outer disciples were recruited, the majority were female disciples. The female disciples outside the main hall were watching him with eyes full of disgust and dissatisfaction. They are disgusted and annoyed by Yu Tianyuan. Apart from being trash that could die at any time if he kept training martial arts, the other point is that he is the son of the former palace lord. There is a certain rule in the Jade Palace, which states that the palace lord is absolutely forbidden to marry and have children. Yu Tianyuan's mother violated these regulations. After giving birth to him, she ran away with a man. If it wasn't for his aunt's influence, Yu Tianyuan would have already been thrown out instead of staying here. Xiaolian addressed him as young master, but other people didn't respect him, let alone address him as young master, and they referred to Yu Tianyuan as trash or rotten eggs. Facing this situation, Yu Tianyuan showed an indifferent expression. He was used to this, and he has already acknowledged this fact. Every time he felt their contemptuous eyes, he clenched his fists and felt extremely angry inside, but he was powerless to change anything. He thought of leaving here countless times already, but when he thought of his aunt, he could not bear to leave. "Tianyuan, you finally came over, did you secretly train martial arts?" With a burst of complaints, a petite and beautiful girl walked over, about 20 years old, not much older than him. When she came over, the surrounding female disciples bowed their heads and said respectfully, "Palace Lord." The girl who came in was Yu Tianyuan's aunt, Shixuan. At a very young age, she had already become the lord of the Jade Palace. The reason why she could become the palace lord was her amazing talent. At the young age of 20, her cultivation had already reached the core condensation realm. Generally, at this age, people only reached the spirit refinement realm. Aunt. Yu Tianyuan looked at Shixian, who looked frustrated, and rushed over to her as he smiled heartily. His aunt was the person who was most concerned about him in the Jade Palace. Seeing her, Yu Tianyuan felt warm inside. A few years ago, when he came to this world, he felt very confused. Over these years, Shixian has been accompanying him, taking care of him, and letting him accept his new life. After all, accepting the previous body's memory does not mean that there was a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging is developed slowly. It is not something you earned over a few days. Although he addressed her as an aunt, they did not have a blood relationship. Since his mother entrusted Shixian, who was like her own sister, to raise Yu Tianyuan, it would have been reasonable for her to call him Xiao Yi. But since they do not have a proper blood relationship, why should they refer to each other as brother and sister? Moreover, the aunt mentioned here was not only meant to address blood relatives but also generally used to address an older female. Not only applied to Shixian but other older women as well, as long as they let you address them that way. No one cared more about him than she does. She was affectionate, kind, and warm, and those feelings are genuine. Looking at her beautiful face, he remembered things from his childhood. Just like his mother, Shixian had been supporting him as he grew up. When she went to train, she would bring him along with her so no one would bully him. She would even go against the elders if it was for his sake. If it weren't for Shixian's talent, those elders would have cast him away. Even if he wanted to stay in the palace, he couldn't cultivate. Then if he tried to cultivate, he didn't possess blood chi, and if he continued to cultivate, he would die. What is the difference between him and trash? Shixian reached out and patted his head gently, and said, I don't blame you for trying to cultivate, but you can't overdo it. Then she took out a box from underneath her sleeve and opened it gently. A strong blood chi came from this jade box. After seeing it, the disciples around them couldn't help but exclaim, they couldn't help but envy him. Who let Palace Lord love this trash? Shixian herself specifically went outside to obtain it. This is Dragon Blood Divine Pill. Yu Tianyuan was shocked when he saw this Dragon Blood Divine Pill. That thing is quite precious. It could add a lot of blood chi, and since Shixian brought this herself, it definitely cost a lot. Yes, this is Dragon Blood Divine Pill, take it. It should be able to increase your body's blood chi greatly. Shixian smiled softly. She did not care about the value of this Dragon Blood Divine Pill, she just wanted to improve Yu Tianyuan's condition. But, Yu Tianyuan was touched, and his eyes were teary. Over the years, his aunt has always found a lot of medicinal herbs to increase his blood chi, but the effect was not potent enough to increase his lifespan. For several years, Shixian kept giving him medicinal pills with similar effects, and now, she even gave him a valuable Dragon Blood Divine Pill. There is no greater joy for me than improving your body's condition, understand? Don't think too much of it. Shixian stretched his hand and pinched his pale face and slightly pulled down, like a naughty girl. Yeah. Yu Tianyuan nodded. He knows what he needs to do now. Restoring his body was the best reward. At this time, a disciple hurriedly entered the palace and said, Palace Lord, a person from Spirit Sect is coming. Someone from Spirit Sect? Shixian frowned, and her attitude changed drastically from just a moment ago when she was talking with Yu Tianyuan. But then immediately, she smiled at Yu Tianyuan. I will go deal with some things first, and you should get some rest. Sister Xiaolian also nodded at him, she also had to go along with her to deal with these things. Well, I understand. Yi Tianyuan nodded and looked at Shi Xian's back as she faded from his sight. He clenched his fist and became frustrated since he can't help her. When Spirit Sect came over, they wanted their quota to enter ancient ruin. He knew all these things, but couldn't do anything to help. I have to take this dragon blood divine pill, and I hope I can recover some blood chi. Yi Tianyuan put away this dragon blood divine pill, then turned around and went to his room. When he walked out to the courtyard, 3 figures stopped and blocking his way. Young master, can you give the dragon blood divine pill to us? We only need a small push for our cultivation to reach the next level, so give us the pill. It doesn't even have any effect on you anyway, it would be better to give it to us. That's right, it's better to give it to us. If it works, we will take you to see the world afterwards. Yes, it won't have any effect on you, nothing will happen even if you take it. It would be better for you to give it to us. The 3 in front of him were recently recruited male disciples. Originally, they are not Heaven Jade Palace's disciples, they are from the outside sect. Judging from their tone, they were treating Yi Tianyuan as trash, even though they haven't been that long since they've become a disciple in Heaven Jade Palace. They knew that Yi Tianyuan was trash standing behind a great woman. Oh, if I say no. Yi Tianyuan's eyes were cold. This was something his aunt gave him, how could he give it to other people?